Abash, I apologize for the interruption.
No, okay.
You're talking about the visa-free regime of Israel to Filipinos, and you're talking about how it came about, and you were saying something about the history of Manila.
Well, as I say, President Rojas, that voted yes for Israel. At the moment, if we were losing this vote, I wasn't being here representing the Jewish state. And President Quezon, I think it's a strong pillar of those relations, and we welcome Filipinos to come and visit Israel as tourists. We have also many Filipinos that live in Israel, work in Israel, and we are blessed. And I want to say, take this opportunity to thank the Filipinos, overseas workers, the caretakers that take care of our most beloved people, our parents and grandparents. Thank you, they're wonderful, we love them, we appreciate them, we respect them. And actually we signed during President Duterte's visit a historic agreement to regulate the working condition, especially to reduce dramatically their placement fees that were almost $10,000 to $800,
wow,
which was very, very important. And the working condition, the pension condition, the days off are more regulated. In Israel, they have their churches. You can go to Filipino restaurant, eat halu and balut, like you are in the Philippines. So we really appreciate, and I want to say just thank you for them. They're an excellent ambassadors for you. And we have even a mixed Filipino-Israeli families here in the Philippines. I see it every day, and the world is global there, and we love the Filipinos that are working in Israel, and we would like to see more Filipinos visiting the Holy Land. They told me it's in the bucket list of every Filipino.
Yes, that's true.
That's true.
Well, because of the religious aspect also
Yeah,
of the visit, not just as tourists.
I know, but Israel is, there's the religious elements. I was born in Jerusalem, so when I tell people here, Jerusalem was my hometown, people look at me, they meet somebody that comes from this holy city, sacred for three religions. And usually the pilgrim groups goes to Jerusalem, to the Dead Sea, to Masada, to the Sea of Galilee, to Nazareth, but there is much more to see in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and Haifa, and kibbutz, and nature, and desert, and everything there. And we see more and more Filipinos going actually to discover, in addition to the holy places, all the other aspects of Israel. Israel is such a small country.
Yeah, that's true.
It's 400 kilometers from north to south, and the population is 9 million people, less than Metro Manila.
Well,
So-
Jim, you just got back from Israel.
From Israel, yes,
Tell us
that's true.
about the conference that you attended. This was an invitation from the Israeli
Yes,
embassy, right?
but first I would like to thank the Embassy of Manila and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on behalf of the Manila Times, bringing the newspaper to Israel. Yes, I attended the National Cyber Week, which is all about, it's a premier conference on cybersecurity, which is, I'm sure, Israel is one of the top cybersecurity countries that provides cybersecurity not only to Israel, but throughout the world. And what I learned was the nation of Israel has this very, very booming economy when it comes to technology. And of course, the startup nation, being a startup nation, I think that is something we should bring here in the Philippines. What do you think, Ambassador? How can we bring that kind of concept here in Manila?
People ask me how come all those multinationals,
Are in
Facebook, Intel, Microsoft, Amazon, Twitter, have their R&Ds in Israel. First, it's issue of our mentality, and the mentality of Israel is, let's say this is a mountain, and you can't pass the mountains. Most nations will go backwards. Israelis will think, can we move the mountain? This will be, maybe we want something, but we think, can we move the mountain? This is first. And second, failing, it's fine in our mentality.
Yes,
we fail
yes.
once, we fail twice, and then the fourth time you succeed. And that's why we have so many, more than 300 startups just on cyber. I came here, I was driving here, and we used the Waze application. Waze was invented by two young engineers, graduate Israeli army. We're thinking how to solve this solution. And then Google bought it for $5 billion. And the company stays in Israel. Wow. The R&D stays in Israel. I'm so proud that we can enjoy it here in the Philippines. I believe that, I've been here almost 1 year. I see the young generation in the Philippines smart, educated, service-minded, motivated. And I think Philippines can be a cluster of innovation, of startups. And actually part of the areas that we are developing is actually relationship that we can share our experience with innovation, the technologies of innovations here. And I think Philippines has a great, great potential for it.
But also, technology can be a very, very useful measure to secure the country, us being an archipelago of more than 7,000 islands. How do you think the Philippines could use technology for our advantage in terms of security, especially with the geopolitical issues that are
Well, there are two
present?
layers for this. The cyber one, which is a separate one, and there is technology when it comes how do you protect your borders with the own ones. And we have a very close cooperation between our defense establishment and your defense establishment. As I mentioned before, terrorism is a global problem, and we try to share. We are not assisting you. We are sharing our approach. We are sharing our experience with you. When it comes to our technologies, our military industries are here and working very closely with your Navy, with your Army, with your Air Force. We did for the first time a training with the Philippine Army about counterterrorism. So this is one layer. The other layer is really cyber. Today, the cyber is not the future. That's
now.
That's the present today. And the cybersecurity is a crucial issue. We are cooperating both on government level and also on the private sector level, because you need to. Every country needs to protect its critical infrastructure, electricity, water systems, traffic systems, banking system, insurance systems, airports. It never ends, and all your government establishments. And
yes, because cybercrime has no borders.
There is no borders, and we are actually cooperating very closely. One of the issues we agreed during the President's visit to start to cooperate on the government level on this, and we're already doing. You're building now your CERT. CERT is the National Government Center for Cyber. We built it already in Israel. Every day there are attacks of cyber on the Philippines and in Israel, and dealing with it is very awareness is very, very important today. There is Internet of Things. Everything that connected to computer can be hacked. So it's a challenge that will get more and more complicated and challenging in the future. And here it's not a one nation that can take care of this. It has to be a global.
Was there any specific agreement with the Philippines about technology when the president visited?
Yeah, we signed an agreement of cooperation on research and development, a scientific one, and there were actually a few delegations already in Israel in this area. We specifically also spoke about the issue of agriculture and water technologies. Yes. In Israel, every year it's El Nino. We don't have enough, except for this year, we were blessed. We have 4 or 5 years of El Nino. And we don't have enough water. Not enough water, so and there's no shortage of water. How did we solve the problem? First, all the home water consumption in Israel is coming from desalination installation. Our late President Shimon Peres, it was his vision, the Mediterranean is there. There's an issue of cost, but nobody's thirsty. Then approximately 85% of our sewage water is being recycled for irrigation of agriculture, purified and from the health perspective, it's proven. And in the Philippines, the challenge is a bit different. It's more water management and water safety. And actually, you're a big country. So, for example, the new Clark City, one of the biggest Israeli companies, is going to be involved in the water technologies and these issues that we are working very, very closely. When it comes to agriculture, Israel, we introduced the drip irrigation to the Philippines, the greenhouses. We try to see what we can do with our private sector when it comes to the shortage of rice. I remember as a child, I was educated that Philippines is the cradle of rice of Asia. Now, when I came here a year ago, I learned that you are now actually importing rice, and the Israeli experts are telling me that you can have actually, if the conditions will enable, at least 2 cycles of rice growing a year. So there are a lot of things to do. Post-harvest issue. Dairy farm is also very important because in Israel, 99.9% of the products are fresh milk. And here it's the contrary. Every cow in Israel is connected to a computer. You know exactly how much milk it's giving, and I saw some farms here that has this Israeli technology. So also agriculture become very high-tech.
High-tech, yes.
That's very interesting. And I understand that your government has invited as many as 600 Filipinos to study over the years.
Yeah, we have two programs that we are running for several years in Israel. First, we have our development assistant agency, Mashav, that does projects here for tens of years. Thousands of Filipinos went to Israel for short-term courses of 2 or 3 weeks, not only on agriculture, on gender issues, on innovation, and we do training on the spot. We bring experts that come and train the trainers. So this is one area. Then we have the Agro Studies program. It's students in colleges of agriculture that part of their studies, they go to Israel for 1 year.
So it's a scholarship.
It's called, they go and they work 5 days in agriculture, and the 6th day is studying. And they come back here, and we have almost 4,000 that has been in this program. Every year 600 from 29 universities, and there is a high demand, but we have other countries want to, and then they come here and implement the knowledge that they learn in Israel. Agriculture used to be the sample of Israeli economy in the 1950s. Almost half of our economy was agriculture. Today we still have one of the best agriculture technologies. It's only 2% of our economy. We are high-tech and mid-tech, but your economy is strongly based on agriculture. So, and I saw a wonderful project they are doing here, but it's a challenge, you know. You have people coming back, you need to find them jobs and projects. We have also some follow-up project for them, but it's very, very important. And actually, they even and they visit the Holy Land. So it's a big experience. I met them all over the country. And it's an amazing experience for them too.
Gene, you were going to ask something?
Yes, I noticed that the newer generation, especially for Filipinos, they focus mainly on technology, on electronics and the apps and everything. But in Israel, it's totally different. There's agriculture, there's medicine, and I think that's the kind of mentality that should also be brought here in the Philippines, because many Filipinos are, like for example, they don't create their technology for their own community. Is always for the whole country, especially for here in the Philippines.
Well, I can't tell you about the Philippines. I can tell you about Israel. We have the government is involved in giving incentives for startups, and the government is willing. And without government involvement, it will be very difficult to reach what we have reached in Israel. There is challenges. One of the challenges is all those big international multinationals are buying our companies. And you know, and they have all those big exits, and they then, you know, so usually most of them are leaving the R&D in Israel, which is important. But this is part of the challenges that we have. But we have so many startups. The startup nation, you know, it's not just a slogan, and they are looking for the new things. A lot, by the way, in the medical issues, which is very, very important. But today there is what we call smart agriculture.
Yes.
You know, this is another. Actually, we had last week a mixed delegation of the Philippine congressman and the Philippine Chamber of Commerce of the Philippine Islands in Israel attending while you were in the cyber conference, they were in Agri-Israel conference simultaneously, exactly to learn from our experience how we do those things. Again, by the way, we also have our shortcomings. We are not perfect, you know, but also to learn from what you should do, you know, it's something that we can share with you.
At the conference, particularly there's two words that I often hear. You mentioned earlier, failure, and the other one is scale up.
Yeah, correct. I agree with you. I strongly, you know, there are some cultures, if you fail once, it's a fini, you can't do it. In our culture, it's okay, you need to check. And I think it comes from our reality. Israel was born after, you know, the ashes of the Holocaust. We lost 6 million of our people. And the first day we got our independence, 5 Arab nations were attacking us, and we are not young anymore. We are 71 years old. You know, you are 121, so we're exactly 50 years difference, and we built a very strong nation. You know, with a strong economy. Look at our GDP per capita. I remember when. My Prime Minister Netanyahu was for the first time Prime Minister in 1996. The GDP was around $14,000. 14. Today it's $40,000 GDP per capita.
Wow.
Still, we have issues like every other country, but we succeeded in both diversifying our markets and our products. By the way, we are pivoting to Asia for already more than a decade. In the past, it was mainly China and India, but at the last decade, we are pivoting furthermore in Philippines and Japan and Singapore. All of this is part of pivoting much further to share our know-how and experience and to see. I see the flood of Israeli companies that coming here and looking for opportunity, not just to export. We have joint ventures, investment. There are Filipino investments in Israel. I was very happy that I saw at least once one investment in an Israeli startup that comes from the Philippines. I saw a big Israeli company which is traded in Nasdaq moving its production to here just a month ago. So you see this developing, and you know it's a global economy. The world is changing, and we have Israeli call centers. I was not even aware, but you have this also because they know here you get service minded. You know what you get, and you get a very good services.
Can you tell us some more about these partnerships and joint ventures? What industries do you see are prime for such Israeli-Filipino partnership?
It's a mixture. It's a mixture. Whether when you get your bills from your cell phone, the billing is done by Israeli companies. Cyber all over the banks and others, you see Israeli military technology. A lot is here. Water technology, agriculture, which is spread. I see Israeli companies or Israeli serious business companies that Philippines was far for them. And especially after President visit, they come here and they see that there is an opportunity. And we see it by the growth of the Israeli-Philippine Chamber of Commerce here in Manila. That we just had our annual event last week, honored by the newly elected mayor of Manila, Isko Moreno, and by Senator Cynthia Villar and other senior Filipinos. And you see hundreds of Filipino companies are members of this very fresh one, and you see the interest, and they are doing all those, building those connections. But we as a government can do up to here. We need to work with the semi-governmental sectors like Chamber of Commerce and others, and with the private sector. This is how it is today.
Well, you were talking about the entrepreneurship, the startup nation topic, but the thing that struck me when I went there was that entrepreneurship was more of a culture among young people rather than a government initiative.
Yes.
I noticed that, for example, there were some financing companies that I went to, and then on a Friday night, some of these young entrepreneurs would just watch movies and get to know each other on roof decks.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, in the book, The Startup Nation, which you mentioned earlier, part of the reason why they had that culture was this experience in the military, which you also did.
There's a very strong connection between between entrepreneurs and military.
How young Israelis are given responsibility at an early age. Now, the Philippines is also talking about the revival of its ROTC. It's become very controversial.
I know.
What is it that the Israelis did? And I remember your predecessor saying that one of the differences is you live in a tough neighborhood, and we don't. Even with China, it's not that kind of a neighborhood for the Philippines. What is it that you did with your ROTC program? You think that
it's not the
Philippines, or the Philippines can
I don't want to give advice to the Philippines, but I'll tell you the Israeli story. Every young Israeli, man or women, at the age of 18, goes to the army for 2 or 3 years. My younger son, God bless him, is now a soldier. I served 3 years in the army and 15 years in the reserve, and it's very normal. I have all the Israeli women that served in my embassy, served in the army, including officers and commando. The army is open today, officers for combat. Now it's part of our DNA. It's not, they're not forced to. Also, if they say no, it's voluntarily, I would go to this service. So it's part of our society. It's just a strong element. Now the world is changing, and today there used to be a draft all over the world, including in Western Europe and in North America. And today I see slowly that some countries are going to some basics, at least for this. Right. What makes us, I think, resilient is the fact that they take this. You're 19 years old, 20 years old, and you have to take command. And you have to take decisions, and it's responsibility, and it's a challenge. I can't compare to the Philippines, and I won't enter to this internal debate, but I think what makes us a bit unique is this really the military service and our commitment to contribute to our country.
It's actually military service, it's not ROTC.
No, it's a military service. We have also a civil service for religious women, but most young Israelis, they go away, and this is part of us, and in addition, we have those that stay for career. But you know what you do, you go when you're 18, you go and you start everything a bit late. So I started college, I was in university, I was almost 23 years old when I started. So we start, and it's fine, but I think that what makes us a bit different. All the Israelis you met in Israel were after military service and whatever. And some of them actually, especially those that deals with R&D and intelligence, they take this know-how and they take it when they became civilians and develop it even further with a strong government involvement of incentives.
So they bring the discipline of the military to their businesses. And yet, when they go to that business, when they create that business, their demeanor is more like a Silicon Valley executive. And nothing, you won't
after
even...
Silicon Valley, Israel is number one in this innovation thing. Again, we have our shortcomings and we have failures, which is okay. It's okay. But we are small. You have to understand we are a small. We just passed the threshold of 9 million people this year. Symbolic. We are very, very small country, and you can compare it to a country of more than 100 million people. It's a different challenge. But I really believe that the Philippines, the potential here to be a cluster of innovation is enormous.
I have two questions actually. First, again, considering the history of Israel having to, having been like a nomadic nation for a long, long time, and of course you had to always ensure the security of your nation.
Still today.
And even today. Which, very interestingly, is the same situation the Filipinos should also have in mind, because we are not totally safe all the time. The geopolitical element is always there, terrorism is always there, and wouldn't you think for a nation like the Philippines, it would be also very advantageous for us to instill in the minds of our young people that whatever the benefits from technology that we can learn should also be assimilated in our national programs towards security, for example, and ensuring that peace around the archipelago is preserved all the time.
Yeah, I won't give an advice what the Philippines should do, but I can tell you that from the government perspective, there is totally awareness of the importance of peace and security bringing in, whether it comes from extremist Islamic organizations like what we've seen in the Mindanao, or the challenge of fighting the smuggling of shebu, of drugs here, which is a major challenge, and part of it is how do you block your borders. One of the things that we do is working with your Coast Guard to share our experience with you. You can't have 100% success against terrorism or crime, but you can conduct 100% efforts. And this is, I think, you can't block it completely. And that's what we try to do, to share with you. Again, we are far, far away. We are not the only country that is doing it, which is important. You're working it with multiple countries. It's important because the issue is not even a regional issue. It's a global challenge for all of us. And I think there is fully understanding here and in Israel that we should cooperate. And the issues were discussed at length during your president's visit to Israel and the follow-up after that.
Yeah, and second question is the relationship between Israel and the Catholic Church or the Christian Church in the Philippines. How do you describe that relationship?
I'm blessed. We
right
just
now?
had 2 weeks ago a historic visit of Cardinal Tagle to the synagogue in the great synagogue in Makati. First, Jews are living in the Philippines for so many years. The synagogue exists also for almost from 100 years, but also during the Spaniards period, Jews were living in the Philippines. I highly recommend you to watch the film Quezon's Game. You will see the story which really presents, and I think every student in the Philippines should know the great history of a great leader that took the right decision. Jews always lived safely in the Philippines with the Philippine brothers. There was no anti-Semitism here. Jewish life is flourishing actually in the Philippines today with synagogues and several Israeli restaurants, Mediterranean in Manila area. And bringing the cardinal for the first time to the synagogue was something that was very important for us. Side by side with the Embassy of the Holy See here, we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Israel-Vatican relations. And we had an exhibition of Pope Francis' visit to Israel while the cardinal visited there It was very special, very, usually I'm not using the term history. It was historic. It was the first ever visit. We have a dialogue about Judaism and Christianity. I spoke about Israel-Filipino relations. The Cardinal mentioned the unique history of our relations. He visited the Jewish kindergarten there, and we had a kosher breakfast, and it was lovely. It was really, I was blessed to be the ambassador in such a very important event, and I know how it is important for Filipinos, their relationship to Israel. So it was very, very unique, very, very unique. I have a lot of admiration for the Cardinal and for the whole embassy here with the nuncio, our nuncio Ambassador Gabriel, which is a close friend. Actually, they just celebrated their National Day last week, and all of us were there together.
At the core of the Christian belief for Filipinos is the belief in the Bible, and the history according to the Bible traces also its roots to Israel. And so that's why you would expect that Filipinos would continue to really include in their bucket list a visit to the Holy Land. And more Filipinos will in the future really continue doing that. What are the specific programs that Israel might have for the Philippines in terms of that?
Well, when it comes to tourism, first, the number of Filipino, as I mentioned, there's no need for visa for both directions. The number of Filipino tourists last year to Israel was 30,000. This year, we see already at the first quarter a 35% increase in the number of tourists, and this before we have direct flights. PAL already declared that they want to fly directly. They need to do some bureaucracy around it, but it's very easy to fly to Israel. You fly to either to Bangkok or to Seoul or to Istanbul or to Hong Kong, and then you continue to Israel. Some of the tourists are going as a pilgrim groups, but others goes to discover the other sides of Israel. Many Filipinos are surprised, they think they come to Israel and it's all desert, and some people think we have camels, whatever. We are number one in the world in planting new trees. In Israel, there's a law. If you cut a tree, you need to plant a new tree. If you look at the photos of the Holy Land, in 1819, when Manila Times was established, it was almost all desert. Today, you have seen it both. Yes. It's green. We have the desert part, but also in the desert we do our agriculture. So there is ecotourism that comes to Israel. On the others, by the way, the Filipino tourists are ambassadors for you. Israelis, when you tell them Filipinos, the image is, such an amazing image, a branding of the Filipinos. The Israelis that come here, when they go all over your islands, Kamigang, Siargao, El Nido, Boracay, Bohol, Cebu, they love it. By the way, they love it. It's so easy to fall in love with the Filipinos. By the way, I found it took me 1 week to understand that there are two things which are so common between Israelis and Filipinos. First and foremost, the heart of the Israeli society is the family. Yes. And the heart of the Filipino society is the family. The second thing, Israelis are so friendly. They will invite you to your homes, whatever. The same here. It's exactly the same mentality. There are some mentalities. You call somebody on Friday at 7 p.m. to a cell phone, says, you are penetrating my privacy. It's here, 24/7. You call, you come. And I like it. Not so much red tape. No, but it's improvisation. You say, okay, you want to come tomorrow for lunch, But this and exactly this mentality of flexibility. And okay, we have this issue. Let's find. This is something which I think connects us very, very strongly.
Well, what do you think can the Philippines do to attract more Israelis to come to Manila? Well, you said that the lack of direct flights is a challenge. There's also, of course, the distance. And I think before we started the interview, you were talking about how the Philippines is an end destination for Israeli tourists. But then again, you said that there are many things that that the Israelis enjoy doing here. What can be done to attract more people?
Well, it's easy. First, direct flights will do it. This, if you ask me, and you will be. I mentioned before, 250,000 Israelis goes to Thailand. We are 9 million. 250,000 goes every year to not 1 year. Every year, that's the numbers. I see when the direct flight will start, it will be 10.5 hours. You will be flooded. Already, I see the numbers. Well, if you can take care how to take away the monsoon and the typhoon, that will help. But I
Maybe
see
we can make that as
the
a
numbers,
tourist attraction.
yeah, and your Department of Tourism is doing an amazing job in promoting the Philippines. It became they film him survival, you know, all those reality shows,
Oh, yes, yes.
and running after the million were filmed in the Philippines, and that already bringing the tourists. You see the character. I was at Puerto Princesa, and we went to visit the underground river, and I met a group of retired Israelis at the age of 70.
Really?
Traveling, I said, well, we just came from Banawa and Segade. So you see a mixture of family tours, very popular for honeymoons, and a lot of the young Israelis after the army, they go for 1 year traveling abroad. Philippines becoming the last 2-3 years major destination. So I have no doubt that the numbers are growing and growing and growing. We see it all. In addition, we have an Israeli community here. You have today around 1,500 Jews and Israelis living in the Philippines, and I see a flourishing society, which is a blessing. You know, that's part of the global, like we have Filipinos in Israel, so we see the otherwise to the other direction.
You were also mentioning earlier the fact that maybe the tourist destinations in the Philippines could put up more accommodations, hotels for the tourists from Israel coming here.
Well, there is. I've been traveling in the Philippines. You know, I've been to places like Baguio, which, by the way, the weather is amazing. You know, I then told you the summer capital of the Philippines. Some Israelis would like to go to high-end hotels, and you have them. You go to Boracay, you go to Yofani, but the young Israelis, they will go to those hostels and stay with. By the way, it's amazing what they tell me, the interaction with the Philippines. So I think accommodation is not any. Actually, there is no issue if you ask for Israelis. Okay. The issue is the distance. There is no impediments. Great food, friendly, safe. You know, so I don't find any impediment. I see those Facebook groups of Israelis traveling. There are a few of them in the Philippines. They all fall in love. They only whatever, and they just, you know. So that's not an issue. The conditions of it, I don't find it an issue for Israelis. The issue is the distance, which is far, and how you access it. Because here, internal flights, it's easy. You can fly, and they go. The Israelis go to the places that other tourists doesn't go. They go and do those treks and say, this is the Israeli mentality. So they go all over.
What about the food? Because, you know, for some Muslim tourists, they make the halal food. Sometimes this is a challenge. Is there kosher food?
First, for those that needs kosher, you can get kosher food in Manila, at least in the 2 synagogues, and also in El Nido.
Right.
Kosher style, it's easy, but a lot of the Israelis are experiencing your food. From halu halu to balut, and to even the binakol soup, if you know of the Visayas, which is amazing with the coconut. So they like to get incorporated. They go to eat the street food. You know, it's part of the experience, and that's unique when Israelis come younger.
Is balut kosher?
I don't think it's kosher, but you can find it in Tel Aviv in the Filipino restaurants. You know, we have in Tel Aviv there are several Filipino restaurants. And in Jerusalem, there's at least one that I know, and you can find all the Filipino food here. Rice is no problem. You have rice all over. I never saw such a diversity of rice. Adobo also. So you have chicken adobo for those that don't eat lechon and other things. But those that eat strictly kosher, there is a kosher slaughtery here that they do it in the kosher way. And we have at least 4 Israeli restaurants in Metro Manila.
Well, you may be surprised, but some of the Muslim friends that I know, sometimes they don't trust the halal brand, but they would trust the kosher.
Good.
In fact, they would prefer to eat kosher rather than the halal branded food items.
I agree. But I like, you know, one of the encounters for me is really knowing the Filipino cuisine and tradition. This is part of the things when you come as a guest to a country, as I'm a guest here, is to learn your culture, you know, and to learn the people. I've been last month in a working official visit in Iloilo, for example. I've never been to Iloilo. And I found out those Ilonggos, first they're so friendly.
Yes.
Then you come to a city, it's a non-smoking city, you know, bicycle lanes.
Yes.
It's a lot, yes, all over the city, yes.
And we have a lot of projects when it comes to this program. We send from UP Iloilo and others, we send students to Israel to to some of the programs. So it's amazing, and you have their own local pastries and others. Bibinka, you call it?
Bibinka, yes.
And others. So,
Biko.
so you have, so you are acquainted, and actually it's very enjoyable meeting those people. I enjoy very much when I travel to the provinces. Very, very much.
Can we take a step back? You mentioned Israel's pivot to Asia.
Yeah.
About a decade ago, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think for a while, despite our history, there were generations that forgot about Filipino and Israel. I mean, probably not from your side, but I think from the Philippine side,
yes.
we had forgotten about it. And I'm quite thankful that we have this movie like Quezon Skin to remind the new generation about the long history of the Philippines and Israel. But what caused that pivot? And you have a newly reelected president. What's the foreign policy with regard to the Philippines?
Yeah. First, I have to say about the issue of Quezon. It wasn't known publicly. It was known until the last decade, and actually, it was all my predecessors were pushing the story. And now, all the Filipino leadership knows it back and forth. After it was so present.
Right.
Filipino president is visiting Israel at 2018, and in all his meetings with our president, our prime minister, started with speaking about President Quezon. It's amazing. Every time I go to Malacanang, they have the reception hall when they have the portraits of the presidents, and I take the Israeli delegation and I show them the portraits of Manuel Rojas and Manuel Quezon, two leaders that took decisions 80 and 70 years ago, and those decisions are so present with us. So this is first. Israel is pivoting to Asia already for 20 years. Mainly it started with China and India. Once we didn't have hardly trade relations with Asia and no diplomatic.
Mostly Europe center.
Europe and EU, and today 20% of our export goes to Asia. And I think what has changed in the last decade is moving further east, as we say, including to the Philippines. And yes, the visit of your president, it's a milestone. It never happened. We had foreign ministers, secretaries visiting. But the visit of the president, since then everything is moving, it was a blessing, and we received him. He represents a great nation. And by the way, I attended his meeting, I have to tell you, as an ambassador, his meeting with the Filipino community in Israel. There were like 2,000 Filipinos and 2 Israelis. Unbelievable how your president received warmly by them. It's like a rock star, it's like something, but for I was so happy. It was on television, Jerusalem, and I saw how unique is the issue, and how for him was important to see the overseas workers, that they're treated well. Some of them came to this event with their elderly people that they take care of them, with flowers. It was amazing, by the way, amazing to see it. And we have, what happened since then, our relations are widening. Energy, for example. One of our major companies is starting already to look for oil and gas at the Sulu Sea, something that wasn't there, in the past. You mentioned you were in cyber. I see the Israeli companies and experts coming here to look for opportunities. So the areas are being widened, and I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with this. Again, the government, again, our main role is to create the condition. For we can't replace them. At the end of the day, it's for them. But we need to create the condition. If I need to sign an agreement or to set the conditions for private sector to do its work, I will do it. I will give an example. Israel, we are tourism. We are going to open Israel for the first time for Filipinos to work in the tourism sector. We had we are 9 million people. We had 4.2 million tourists last year. Just imagine Philippines will get 55 million. We don't have Israelis to take care of this. The only ones that did some outside of it was Jordanians. So there was a decision of the government to start slowly to open based on bilateral agreements. The first country that we signed the agreement, Secretary Bello went to Israel to sign an agreement, and now it's at the end of ratification here is to have Filipinos. And I hope that soon, when you will finish your formalities, we are ready, we could have Filipinos working in the hotel sector. It's a beginning, and we do it because we're really blessed to have your caregivers in Israel, and we need them. So this is another sample of something that wasn't there before a presidential visit. It has a concrete result and outcome for a visit.
May I?
Go ahead.
Sorry. May I ask for your opinion as an ambassador about some global issues, such as, for instance, the prospect of peace in the Korean Peninsula, and also between the U.S. and China, now that President Trump has done some kind of, reaching out to China to resolve the trade war, and then here with Kim Jong-un. I mean, this is like good news for everyone, because all nations will benefit if these issues are solved.
I agree with you. I totally
what
agree
are
with
your
you.
thoughts?
Yeah, first, I totally agree with you. Israel has a very close relations with the United States. It's #1 ally. The president has been to Israel, and we support very strongly the foreign policy of the United States, and everything that bring peace, quiet, improved trade. It's something that we support strongly. We are members of the World Trade Organization. Today, the trade is global. When the economic crisis of 2008 hit the world, by the way, Israel and the Philippines were one of the few countries that weren't hit dramatically. We because we are very cautious, and because we succeeded in diversifying our markets and our products, and we are small enough to shift it. We have a very, people say, conservative monetary and fiscal policy. It kept us out of this crisis. You know, we saw what happened. We were not there, you know. And I'm happy. I had a discussion with the deputy head of the Philippine National Bank, and you also, your policy about the banks, you know, are very, very important, because, you know, we look at the history, you know, those economic crises and coming back and forth, and you have to be very, very cautious. Having a environment of peace is very, very important. And I will add another thing. You know, we were facing, you know, in our 71 years, we were facing several wars. And despite this, our economy is booming. The strength of a country, if you're a strong country, if you brand your country, is you go out of a conflict and immediately the economy starts moving up. Immediately, you don't shut down your economy, and if there was a terror attack, you will reopen the restaurant the day after it was attacked. It's very, very important, to go back to business, to show that you are strong. We had periods 20 and 30 years ago that we were challenged very badly. You know, despite this, we didn't let it hurt our economy, and this is very, very important. So creating this environment is crucial to have this economic growth. I see, by the way, the figures of. I wish we had this economic growth of the Philippines. Still, if it's around 6%, you know, we have still around the 3%, which is a challenge. But we have another challenge now. And I tell you, you know, all the countries around us have oil. You know, we says, how come God? We are the Holy Land. Skipped Israel. I remember as a child. Finally, in 2011, we discovered the biggest oil field offshore from Israel that was discovered in the 20th century. And his name is Whale Leviathan. And by the way, the company that discovered it is the one that is coming to the Philippines to explore. And a few other smaller ones. And Israel, I can say that it's like a dream come true, you know, that we are now starting to export at the end of the natural gas, and the first clients, our neighbors, Jordan, Egypt, and the Palestinians speak about peace. We are going to be totally self-sufficient on natural gas, again, a dream come true, which is forcing us to divert our industries from coal and oil to much healthier and much less expensive energy resource, which is natural gas. So I think in 5 years, around 70% of our industries will be on natural gas. It's a blessing, but it's a challenge. Our currency is already strong. It will get stronger because of it. And we are dependent on export. Half of our GDP goes to export. R&D is very important. So we need to know, and we will be very careful what to do with all those income that will come. Not to spend it, but to keep it for next generations, for others. It's a challenge not to get what's so-called the Dutch disease, that it will kill your R&D. So it's a good news, but we have to be very, very vigilant in how we deal with it. So we are blessed. We're starting it when our economy is generally doing well, even though we have a deficit like any other country. But But it's a challenge. It's good news, but again, you have to be very, very, very cautious.
When I was there, I noticed there's a lot of construction, and that's a real sign of booming economy, just like in Manila. But you mentioned about exporting some of your natural resources, and in the discussion Cyber Week, you are also exporting cybersecurity to your neighbors, but they didn't mention the countries, but you are exporting cybersecurity.
Good to know. When it comes to construction, just when I was born, we had 2.3 million citizens. We have 9 million today. Just imagine how much the population grew. And you need to build housing. Housing is a big issue. You saw in Tel Aviv, building. By the way, I see it all over, not only in Manila, by the way. When you travel in the nation, you see the build, which is very important. It's a major challenge on our infrastructure. Developing the railroad system and the cars, and because everybody has 2 or 3 cars, it's a challenge. Traffic, by the way, it's not only in EDSA. You have the challenges. We have it also all over the country. When the quality of life is rising, then it's an issue for us. I see. But a lot of it, by the way, most of it comes from a private sector and investments. And we have regulation and other issues.
Speaking of the private sector, you mentioned earlier that the Philippine Airlines is looking to fly. Is there an air agreement already in place, or?
Yeah, I think they went. I think they need. It's a procedure, but they already declared that they plan to fly, but they need to have some overflight permits and other issues. We will welcome them. It's up to them.
It's a commercial issue.
Yeah, but they declare that they go. But we will be more than happy to have them in Israel. I think they plan to go 3 times a week, but still, it's an issue of months. It won't be tomorrow, and I think they're in the process of doing the permits. We'll be welcome if PAL will fly to Israel.
Are you negotiating with other airlines like Cebu Pacific?
Well, again, our Secretary of Tourism was here, and I think he met all the relevant players. The issue is to have direct flights, and again, it makes it easier. I know that in the past they were discussing continuing to Rome, because then you can do the only. But I think you need visa to Italy, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, Vatican. But I think Jerusalem will do it by itself. I think it will be attractive enough to go. But we will facilitate whenever we can this issue. It's very important. You can fly from almost all your neighbors. They start direct flights from Japan now. You can fly from Thailand, from 5 different destinations in China to Israel. India, they have direct flights, so the potential is there. And not only one airline. There's Israeli airlines flying, local airlines are flying, Cathay Pacific is flying.
Are there Israeli airlines that are looking to partner?
No, they are not as big as yours. Partner, yes, code sharing, but to fly here, I don't see it happening in the near future. The Israeli airlines flies to Bangkok and Hong Kong and to India, and I think they're going to fly to Japan. I'm not aware that they are going. But it's business at the end of the day. It's private airlines. We don't have a nation. No. It used to be like, I think PAL was once owned by the guys. So our El Al was, but not today. Yeah, we have only three or four airlines. Israel is small. Don't forget, we are very small. You can't compare.
And I was asking you earlier about the foreign policy with regard to the Philippines. Are you looking at it just the Philippines, or are you looking at ASEAN as a whole, and maybe Philippines as a springboard? I suppose because of our historical ties. Is that what your foreign policy is?
Well, no, I think we have to. Well, we have pivoting to Asia, but Philippines by itself is a great nation, and what we do in the Philippines, it might be different from other countries.
Sure.
Philippines could be, and we were discussing it when it comes to development assistance and the training that we do here, could be actually regional base for the Pacific.
Wow.
For the islands of the Pacific, so that could be. But the Philippines itself, there are so many things to do here by itself. It stands.
You could be busier for many years.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's such a huge nation, such a big nation. But everywhere I go, from Mindanao to northern Luzon and the Visayas, you see there's Israeli element. Israelis were doing here in the hospitals. And again, we are a small nation, don't forget. And it's not our neighborhood. Drip irrigation in Mindanao, helping here and there. So again, with our limited resources, know-how, we are more than blessed to share our experience.
How would you describe the Philippine-Israel relations in the coming years?
Well, I think the direction is deepening and widening those relations as much as we can. I think this is the issue, finding more and more areas. The areas of cooperation is huge. I mentioned the issue of tourism. When the first Filipino overseas workers will come to work
Yes, sir,
in tourism. This is for us, it's in history. Because no other country has been there in the past. No way we did, and it's all regulated. By the way, it's not just okay. The president decides. It's you need to sign the employment contract. It's very agreed that the conditions will be that we know how important for you and for us is the conditions of the Philippine overseas workers. And I'll tell you just a short story. In Israel, when somebody is passing away, they put an obituary in the newspaper. Says, we informed, and his wife, his children. What you see now in the Filipino caregiver.
Really?
Something that you see as part of the family.
A special mention.
A special mention. Something which I've never seen in all my lifetime. How they become parts of our families. They take care of our most. I know here, I ask here in the Philippines, who takes care of your elderly? They are with the family. In Israel, everybody. So it's the Filipinos. 30,000.
Well, in terms of infrastructure, what else can the Philippines do to make it more attractive to Israeli visitors and tourists? You mentioned earlier, right now, it's not so much an issue because we only have about 10,000 or 20,000, you said?
We have more than 20.
Yeah, right. But once those relationships flourish more, I mean, we could be overwhelmed, right?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't find a problem with hospitality or the issues. What is important for Israel is to have like a good cell phone system, a network, Wi-Fi, internet, fast internet. These are things, by the way, businessmen, that's what they are looking for.
Yes.
This is crucial, to do business.
This is what Israeli companies can also bring.
I know, and actually they work. And to have, when it comes to business, to have a friendly business environment, and I know the government tries very hard to cut the red tape. I know it. By the way, we have our regulation, which is also very tough. Believe me, very, very tough. We have, when it comes in some areas, we have a G2G agreements that, especially on the military technology, that is making it easier, I would say, to come. But there is bureaucracy. It exists everywhere.
Does your government or nation see the role of Israel as a peacemaker in the world now that peace is really put at risk by some
Well, we support peace,
it.
but I think we have enough of our challenges and problems that we can solve. Even though you look at the history, some of our leaders were involved, but we have enough of our challenges, so it's not an area that...
How would you describe your way of dealing with these challenges, especially when it comes to the
our neighborhood?
The
issue is if you look at our history today, if you go 40 years ago, the main threat on Israel was from big conventional armies. It has changed dramatically. We have peace with Egypt, working very well. Peace with Jordan, working very well. Syria doesn't have an army, which is, after the civil war. Lebanon doesn't have an army, a serious one. Iraq doesn't have an army. So the major threats today are non-state players. It has changed, like you have in the south, Abu Sayyaf, ISIS. It's Hezbollah and Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and one nation, Iran, that is the main sponsor of terrorism, the main source of instability, not only in the Middle East, but the threat that was existing from big conventional army is not there. It's not there. It has changed dramatically, our environment, and the fact that we have, I mentioned we are going to export natural gas to our neighbors, the fact that environmental issues across border is a totally dramatic change. When it comes to the Palestinians, it's very simple. Hamas in Gaza is a terror organization. With the Palestinian Authority, we talk and discuss. We have challenges and issues, but the main challenge is the Iranian issue. Iran has a mixture of radical ideology, Islamist, aided by weapons of mass destruction. And you see all the moderate Sunnite countries, they are concerned about it.
But pardon me, Ambassador, what troubles me a little bit is how it seems to me that Israel and Saudi Arabia seems to be singing the same tune. And and then when you talk about terrorism, wasn't it just more of the Al Qaeda, more of the Wahhabi influence?
Well, I think that there's an understanding in many parts of the Arab world what's the risk which emanating from the extreme regime in Iran. I think it's very, very clear. it's not just an Israeli problem that they said so we should destroy Israel, wipe Israel. By the way, and the UN is very quiet. A UN member calls to wipe Israel off the map or anti-Semitism. We are strong. We know how to protect them. But all those countries around there, if Iran will become nuclear, what does it mean to all the neighboring countries? How they can, so the issue is extraordinary. That's why we support very strongly the moves of the American administration when it comes to sanctions on Iran, because that's the only thing they have to understand, that there is a price for this. Israel is a peace-loving country. We would like to live in peace with our neighbors. We have proven this with Jordan, with the Palestinians. We gave up Gaza. We left Gaza till the last inch, and we get missiles instead of this. We have good relations with the Jordanians. And we talk also to countries which we don't have formal relations, because we understand that the risk today is global. But the main challenge on the everyday day today is the non-state players. This is the main challenge. You mentioned Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Hamas. You have your organizations. This is a major.
As you were saying earlier, this is a global.
It's a global. It's not a regional. It's a global problem. The
Even in cybersecurity, Israel already identified Iran as a major threat.
Yeah, and non-state players understand it. That cyber is part of the issue today. This is really. It's not the future. We are living in this age today, and countries should be alarmed and alert and to work. And that's why we agreed one of the areas that we would like to cooperate between Israel and the Philippines is cyber.
And going back to the startup subject, it's interesting that when I visited Israel, there were some startup companies that were also engaging in security products and services. And one in particular was pretty interesting. How there was a private startup that was offering satellite security service for companies that could actually track ships and vessels that I wonder if that's something that's already brought here, or
I don't know, but the issue, it's all of them are private. It's not a government, it's private, so I have no idea. I don't no idea, but we have hundreds of them, in Israel, hundreds of those startups. It's not okay, there are 2 or 3 companies. It's just on the cyber. We are small, 300 startups just on the cyber. So imagine about it, and a lot where there were efforts on the medical issues, biotechnology issues, which is very, very important.
One of the things I suppose that's different is that you know how you mentioned earlier that when there's a failure of a business, it's just you just get up and start again. Yeah. But whereas Filipinos we're very Asian in that sense, where that you maybe lose face. Or maybe that the fear of failure keeps you from trying. I was wondering what your thoughts about that.
Well, I don't know about the Filipino mentality, but in Israel, it's first you are failing. That's the reality. Right. You try and you fail and you try again. You try again and you try to think outside of the box. I think that our reality, our geostrategic situation. Many years they tried to have economic boycott on Israel in the 1960s and 70s, and you try to think outside of the box. You are forced to do it, and then you find some solutions which are good. Some of them are less relevant, and that's how we are dealing with it. And again, I would say we are not perfect. We have our shortcomings, but I look where we were and where we are today, and we are doing much better than where we were. I couldn't imagine all those thousands of Israelis traveling to the Philippines 30 years ago. It was not common to travel abroad. Now it's every Israeli. You don't need to be a wealthy person or whatever just to go and explore Boracay, Manila, or Cebu. No, it's not an issue. You just go and save a bit money, and that's it.
Right. And also, Israel seems to have this kind of focus on really strengthening your economy internally, so that whatever political risks and challenges there are around you, you would still stand strong. And that's, I think, something that other countries like the Philippines can learn from.
You touch exactly the point. We understood that we might be very vulnerable, and we are vulnerable not just for security threats, but for global changes. The economy today is global, and that's why we take this policy of being more cautious, that if there is a crisis, and we will have in the future economic crisis, that we will minimize the impact on our economy. This is something very, very important. That's why you can't be dependent on one market or on one product. And this is crucial. And now when the income will start coming from the natural gas, that will be another challenge, how to do it, but we should sustain the investment on R&D, on research and development, and that we should sustain, because we don't have such a big local market, the dependence on export. This is crucial. Half of our economy is on export. Half of our economy goes to export, and it's not only to one country; it's plenty of countries. So there will be periods of ups and downs. You can't avoid it, But you need to have enough of a cushion to deal with a crisis, and there will be crisis. You can't grow in the economy. All of us knows it in the future.
Well, Ambassador, thank you very much for being here with us. I think what people will remember most is that there's visa-free entry to Israel.
For tourism reasons.
For tourism.
Yeah, just want to make it clear. Yeah. It's a blessing being here. Thank you all for having me here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Okay.